Welcome to the egcfpodcast, where we have in-depth conversations about topics that we may not cover on Sunday morning. My name is Nate, and today I'm joined by Rob Woodrum, Janelle Green, Matt Green, and Blake Roseman. In this episode, we talk about formal memberships and why we don't have one at Eastgate.
Google has Gemini, and you can talk to it and ask questions, and stuff, which is really nice. But one of the coolest things, I asked it to show me a picture of an alligator on a motorcycle, and it did. And I said, now dress it in Mardi Gras colors, and it did that too. It can do. You just say what you want, and it
Is this recording? Please put this as the end.
Are what?
Yeah.
Welcome to the 21st century, Blake. You just discovered us here.
Before this,
the coolest
he had to go
thing.
to so many different magazines and cut out a motorcycle, cut out an alligator, cut out Mardi Gras. Do you know how much time that took?
Hi, my name is Rob. I'm one of the pastors here at Eastgate.
I'm Janelle. I'm also one of the pastors here at Eastgate.
I'm Matt. I'm Matt. I'm the worship leader here at Eastgate.
Why is
He
he
does that every
saying
time.
like that?
It's like
Like
when
there's
you,
a Westgate
when you
that's
hire an
competitive.
extra for a movie and they're like, I have a line, I've got to stand out, but it's like the last, like you're here to not stand out. That's Matt. He's my husband.
I'm Blake. I'm the calm unity pastor here at Eastgate.
Calm unity.
I'm Nate. I'm the student pastor here at Eastgate,
Oh, boy.
and also the producer.
This could
of
take a
this
while.
Janelle is falling apart.
podcast.
Janelle has a migraine now.
I liked it.
Nate, what are we talking about today?
So I grew up in the church, and I was surprised to find out in my adulthood that churches had memberships. What's that about?
So that's interesting. So you grew up then in a
Church.
like what you were in Calvary Chapel, right? Is that
We went to a Baptist church for a while. There might have been a membership there.
There
I
would have
don't
been.
Definitely would have been a
remember.
membership.
yeah?
And there was Calvary before we came here.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So honestly, the churches that don't require membership, I would say, are probably in the minority. Well,
Probably.
when you look at the
I bet it's growing, but yeah, I bet it is still pretty much in the minority. Yeah.
on the broad scope of churches.
Talking like I know anything.
I loved it. I was
I
like,
did too. I thought it gave me a great sense of security. Like, well, Matt knows.
oh,
Matt,
I loved it because I knew he had no idea what he was talking about.
I think that
I was listening in the facts, and we're just like, Rob needs some support.
And
Here. I can help.
here's what I love is that Matt and Nate share a mic, and Matt just grabbed that mic. Like, I know, I've got this. This is my turn. This is why I woke up early to get here to this podcast, is to share about
I've
stuff
got this
I
bit of
don't know.
information.
I think that Matt's just been married to Janelle so long. Like you've taken on the confidence, no matter whether the answer is true or not.
What is that
I
supposed
wish
to
What-
this
be?
no,
was
that
a
meant
I wish this
exactly
was
what I
filming
meant.
this.
Yes, because that expression was
Janelle's
fantastic.
slack-jawed face. I'm just like, what?
I have never done that.
Should we tell the Disney World story real quick?
No, I was always thinking about the Luke as a 12 disciples
Oh,
story.
man.
That's
Oh,
my
boy.
greatest
Oh, boy.
church
I
failure.
tried.
He's not one of the 12 disciples, long story short. Okay, so
All right. So sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Oh,
We are very confident that it's the minority that people don't have memberships. But go ahead.
okay. So, you would, if you were to take a poll of most churches across the global spectrum of churches, you would probably find the majority of them require a formal membership, and that's what we're talking about. Membership, I believe, a person. I'm a member of my family, and there's no formal membership that I had to. So membership is one thing. Formal membership is actually specifically what we're talking about, a formal church membership. There are different qualifications for becoming a member that different churches will require. Usually it involves classes that help you get to know what the church is about, what their core values are, what they want. There are pledges sometimes that you make that I will live in a way that's consistent with the values of this church. I'll donate my resources to help keep the church supported, things like that. And then you get on basically what is called the roll, the roll call of the membership. So you're considered a member, an active member in good standing of a church. Your name is listed in a formal membership. So if somebody comes and says, is so-and-so a member of your church? You can go back to your database, however you use that, and look and say, oh, yes, they're here. They've been baptized. That's a little aspect of it, too, being baptized within that particular tradition.
I just Googled to see like what percentage of churches.
Oh, interesting. Google will know.
And I've never seen this response from Google, and I swear this is exactly what it says. I promise I'm not lying. It's impossible to tell you.
well we should write to Google and tell them. We've got the answer.
I'm like, excuse me, Google, you're supposed to tell me all of the
Would
things.
ChatGPT know, though?
It says it's impossible to pinpoint an exact percentage of churches that require formal membership. I've never had Google tell me that before.
Right? Yeah, it's usually pretty confident as you know.
So any guess is a good guess, I think.
Have you been a member of a church before? Like, do you know...
How many churches have you been kicked out of before you started one?
I have not. My experience is like Nate's. I was never. So here, this gets into the deep history of Rob, which nobody wants to hear. But my dad was a pastor, not a pastor. My dad, within the Methodist tradition, was what was called an evangelist, which meant he would travel around and host different, would speak at different events that were hosted by the Methodist Church, whether that was a camp meeting or revival that was scheduled at a church, which never made any sense to me. How do you schedule a revival? Either way. But anyway, that's what he was involved in. And this gets into the weird history of my family. I'm not exactly sure why, but my dad was traveling all the time. I don't know why, but my mom never really took us to church. She was an avid believer. She was absolutely, completely dedicated, but getting involved in a local church was just not her thing. And so I grew up outside of that pretty much all the time up until I got to the crazy church.
So was your perspective was just the camp and
Yes.
revivals? That was your only perspective of church until you went to
Every
the
once
crazy
in a while, we would go to different churches. I have minimal memories of my experiences within those
I found a statistic. That's,
okay.
That's interesting. It's not
Did
exactly
you do
the same
Chat
thing.
GPT?
Yep.
It says impossible.
It says all of the 10 largest Christian denominations in the U.S. offer some form of official membership.
So we're not in the top 10?
Well, but that's denominational churches. And it says, however, awareness among congregants varies. So sometimes people will just go to a church and not realize that there's a formal membership. Non-denominational churches are more likely to operate without formal membership.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Approximately 18% of attendees at non-denominational churches report
Okay,
to their
so
church.
this is
And that's what we would be as
this is making sense then. So you didn't grow up with a membership. So then when you started Eastgate, did people say like, hey, you need to start a formal membership now that you're a formal church? Okay.
Yes. That was like one of the first things that was beginning to develop as people were getting involved in the building of this community, trying to figure out how we pursue it. Now, in the crazy church, we didn't have a formal membership because it was a non-denominational.
Clarify the crazy church real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry. The church that in my formative years as a Christian, I would now identify it as a cult. It held to traditional Christian doctrines concerning the salvation and the Trinity, but it had aberrant behavioral doctrines that really set it apart. It was very leadership focused, et cetera, and it was a very abusive church environment, and that was my formative years. I call it the crazy church affectionately because that's where I first got saved. But it was crazy.
Yeah,
it was absolutely
you don't need
crazy.
membership whenever you're in a cult.
That's correct.
So
because if you leave
everybody
it, you're going
knows
to hell.
who you
That's
are
right.
and whether you belong there or not.
That's right. And
So are
whether
we
you're
a
towing the
cult?
line.
So what was
If we
what
play
was
our cards right.
What was the reason? I'm sure you thought this through. What was the reasoning you came to as far as deciding not to have a formal membership?
So the reasoning was that as it is with pretty much everything that Eastgate is about, it's that I want to know what Scripture revealed about this, and so the huge lack, that doesn't make any sense, but the glaring lack of any sort of evidence that there was any sort of formal membership ever associated with the origins of the church, to me, I just thought, well, I don't think it's a bad thing. That's what I want to make clear, that I could see some value in that. Honestly, over the years, after 30 years, I can look at it objectively and say, I get why they did a membership here. I get that makes sense now. But in terms of just if I want to stick with with what the Scripture's showing, and I think that there's a lot more of an organic sense to us just gathering as a community. And
whoever wants to be here.
yeah, if you want to be here, then you're part of us.
Nate's wanted to say
How
something.
did a membership come about? Is there like a clear history that we can follow or anything like that?
You might have to pause
Matt,
this.
you know about memberships. You were sharing earlier about how much
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. So around 1123 AD, there was Saint Achilles
Memborius.
A member.
I don't know.
Type it in chat GPT.
Honestly,
I'm
we
not
probably have
typing
to
it in.
pause this and edit this. I should have done a little research.
Well, I don't think we were expecting that profound
Okay,
of a
I've
question.
Googled it. It says it's impossible to know.
Google doesn't know much about Christianity. I was going to say if we're looking at the early church and how membership would have worked, it probably would have been the opposite of membership in the sense because they were being persecuted.
Yeah, right.
I got it. So it originated, we don't know exactly, we can't pinpoint it exactly, but it originated within the Roman Catholic Church and was part of the disciplinary standards that were being developed.
What do you mean by disciplinary standards?
Making sure that everybody was conforming to what it was that was representative of the Roman Catholic value system and doctrine.
Is this like 300
Like-
or 400?
I don't know. I don't know that we would actually have I don't know that we could ever pinpoint it, but basically the idea of
No, I was just. When did the Catholic Church kind of begin? I thought that wasn't it around that area of time.
well, that's the whole thing. It's very difficult to like pinpoint an exact time when the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church both claim to be the very first churches or the first representations of church. The development. The Roman Catholic Church, as we know it today, that was hundreds of years in the making. So it's not like we can look back and say, well, here's the point in which they, got a 501c3 and called themselves the Roman Catholic Church. Or
The
something.
reason why I was asking.
Oh, Matt's got answers.
What if you want? I mean, it's quick, and I can just real quick read it. Is that during the post-Constantinian Church, the 4th century, membership became more tied to sacramental participation. Bishops had clearer oversight of who belonged to their congregations, but membership was still more implicit. And then in the Reformation era, so 16th century,
Okay.
Martin
makes
Luther
sense.
and John Calvin began to emphasize the concept of a visible church composed of true believers. Reformed and Baptist traditions especially began formalizing membership to distinguish the church from the broader population.
How interesting.
And then congregational churches like the Puritans required explicit covenants
That's what I was
and
reading.
testimonies of faith. And then in the 18th and 19th century, during the Great Awakenings, personal conversion experiences became central, and churches formalized membership as a way to affirm those conversions. So it was almost like another step in the conversion process. Like you pray the prayer, you get baptized,
Gosh.
and then you're formally in.
And so just as you're reading over that, you can see, like, if you know the history that surrounds each of those developments that you're talking about there, like with the Reformation, well, post-Constantinian. So Constantine was the first Roman emperor to claim Christianity and began implementing certain benefits for those in Rome who wanted to embrace this new state religion. And the best way to do that is to start building a formal registry of who it is that's identified as a believer. Then you get to the Reformation and the pushback against Catholic abuses at that time, and wanting to make sure you've got people who are really committed to this pushback and are not part of that movement any longer, but now are identifying as this movement. So you can kind of see how this sort of thing develops over time. That's very interesting. So we weren't part of any of that. We're just a bunch of people at the beach trying to hang out and love Jesus.
So you mentioned that you don't think that memberships are a bad thing. What are the good aspects about memberships?
I think a good aspect is that of being able to keep track of who it is that you are fellowshipping with.
Right.
And I would say that's one of probably our biggest handicaps here, is that we really have a great deal of difficulty determining who's been a part of us, and if they're gone, why are they gone? And
did they leave? Are they on vacation? like you don't want to bug people and be like, do you still like us?
Yeah.
But like, or if like they've left, I know people have talked about leaving other churches and feeling kind of hurt that like the church never reached out.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that there's probably a good amount of people we haven't.
I'm
because-
convinced of that.
yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think that a formal membership could go a long way to helping resolve, that problem. But the trade-offs, I don't know. Are they? I don't know. I have no idea. That's a tough one.
Well, and I don't want people to feel like too, like, I don't know, just in leaving that like you have some obligation to stay here. You know what I mean?
But
And
just
that-
to make sure that somebody's okay, and just to be able to.
Yeah,
follow up with
honestly,
people.
would this be the first podcast where we like actively change something about Eastgate?
Ooh.
And I'm not saying we have to do this, but now I'm starting to think it through. Obviously, there are downsides to memberships, formal memberships that are using it as a way to control people or
Get
to
more
manipulate
money.
them. Yeah,
Right.
but we would obviously not use, or we would certainly try really hard not to use it for that purpose. And if the purpose is more just these are the people in our community, almost like making it more like a giant email list or something like where
Church directory.
So
Yeah,
I would say
yeah.
we used to even say that at the early
Right.
stages of Eastgate, if you were on the church directory, because we had a directory. This is pre-Facebook world. And if you wanted to sign up for that, that was kind of the way we kind of kept track of who all was
But even
part
then-
of it. But even
sorry,
that
sorry.
was subject to abuse then. So somebody got a hold of the church directory and then started spamming everybody.
Right.
Pre-Facebook days, start sending out emails to people for
Well, and even then,
purchase
like, what would be the-
opportunities and horrible.
what would be the benefit? I'm just playing this out in my head. So we have this formal membership. It's nice to have because we now know these are people who come here.
You're in,
What
you're
do we,
in, you're
yeah,
not.
and so do we look at the list like weekly and say, hey, we haven't seen this person in a while?
I don't
That
know.
seems
Yeah.
complicated. So I guess
don't know
I'm
that
now
it
going back. I'm like,
necessarily-
actually, I'm not sure.
that would even solve the
It would
problem.
really help.
Yeah,
that much.
but
think-
for me on benevolence, that would help me tremendously. I would
explain.
I would love that. I would love to know that to have a list of. It's hard for the human mind to capture what it can't see. So if you walk into your house one day and like just a photograph has gone off the hallway wall, you might not see that for a few weeks. You might not notice them. And so if somebody's gone from here and I don't see them, and plus we have
Right.
such a changing community with military and
Right,
vacationers and snowbirds and or people from the north coming down, that
Yeah.
I would love to be able to recognize it. I have to try and remember right now, and if I don't see somebody, I try and call them and see how they're doing. It would be really beneficial to me, but at the same, so there's a couple things that go along with that. One, after I started coming to Eastgate for, I don't know, 6 months or a year or however long it usually takes for Christians to start.
We invited you to leave.
I asked about membership, and you said I didn't qualify.
That's right.
But
We've kept it a
you know,
secret from
after-
him all these years.
This whole podcast is still a ruse. Like, yeah, we
don't let him
do
know.
memberships, right, guys?
Wink, wink.
So at some point in your early Christianity, something bad, the first bad thing happens, and then you kind of become disenfranchised, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I how much I hold to this or whatever. Anyway, that had happened to me, and Rob actually uncomfortably called me after I think 3 weeks or a month. I didn't show up to Eastgate, and it was cool. It set the example for me for benevolence. But you had said he was like, yeah, hey Blake, I just wanted to call and see how you were doing, and I was like, yeah, I hadn't been over there in a while, and da-da-da, and I gave some excuse or whatever, and you're like, no, that's not what I'm calling. I was like genuinely calling just to make sure that you were okay, because I hadn't seen you. There's no obligation to be at
no memory
Eastgate.
of this.
Yeah, you have no obligation to be at Eastgate or anything like that. I just wanted to call because I wanted to see how you were doing. Well, that propelled me into wanting to come back to East, showing up to Eastgate again. So this is all Rob's fault.
As it usually is. I mean, I guess. Well, now
I guess I just feel like my dad never makes phone calls, so I'm just wondering, did you dress up like my dad and pretend that he called you?
The Cajun
'Cause
reading
that
guy.
feels a little more believable to me.
I mean, that's a cool story though. Like that's such a and at that time, well, maybe not. But I'm thinking like as Eastgate is bigger and people come and go so often, yeah, we just miss
That's the
them
part. So that
leaving.
there was about 40, 50 people hanging out at
Right.
that time. So when somebody's absent or you're not, it was
It's
a lot
clear.
easier.
Yeah, that
to,
was a
to
long time.
Okay,
recognize.
I have thoughts. First of all, Blake, when you were talking about that, it makes me think of how when I'm trying to get rid of stuff in my house, I'll load it all up into a big black giant garbage bag, and I'll tell my family, if you tell me
I don't
what's
like where this
missing,
is going.
if you tell me what's missing, you can have it back.
Oh,
And they never know what's missing, and they've never gotten anything back.
She's a really nice person.
She sounds so nice. It's just a delight.
I was
My house
really
is tidy.
concerned. I was about
So
to.
anyway, it made me think of that. Of like, it is hard to tell the absence of something, but I think that the answer to all of this, because as you were talking about, Matt, of like, oh, maybe we should have a membership, but that doesn't really solve things either. The answer to all of this, and it's the reason we don't have a membership, is community.
Right.
And an emphasis on community. And it doesn't work if it's just the people on staff and just
That's
the
right.
people on leadership who care about reaching out to people
That's
who aren't
correct.
here, because
That's
there's
exactly
not
correct.
enough of us. And so the goal for Eastgate is to represent community as equals. No one person is better than the other person, and that we all here as a community work together to meet the needs of this community in different ways.
That's a really good
Excellent.
point.
Yep.
Thank
Really
you.
good point.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Because I do think we sometimes, as people in leadership on staff or board or whatever, is we think like, oh, I need to fix this problem, and the way to fix it is I need to take over and take the reins. And this is such a good reminder of like, no, we actually don't even feel that way, really. Like, we actually don't agree with that mindset at all.
Right.
That's almost like giving it up to God to do the work.
Whatever.
Don't like
What
that.
are you saying?
Somebody's always going to get religious on us.
We're sick of it.
Poor Nate.
But I know.
Edit that out.
Act like we
Edit
didn't
it to
say
where
it.
we look nice.
Yeah,
Nate. Would
we
you?
look like
Because we
delight.
keep looking mean to Blake, especially, and I feel like that's kind of on you as a producer.
My bad. I'll try to make y'all seem nicer.
Thank you so much.
You're the
That's
best,
so nice.
Nate.
But I know, Dad, that the community is even part of your heart and like vision for Eastgate as a church.
Well, yes, and I will say that it's not because it's unique with me. That's what
That's
the
what
New
makes you
Testament.
special.
That's what the New Testament represents to us all the way through. It's this. I mean, this is what Jesus established in Matthew when he gathered his disciples around and he's saying, you know, who do people say that I am? And Peter identifies him as Messiah, and I believe the way to understand what Jesus said is that on the rock of this truth, that I'm the Messiah, I'm going to form my church, ecclesia. It's a community. It's a group of people called from their homes, and the idea is this: we are called from our homes to gather around this centralized truth that Jesus is the Messiah, the means by which God reconciles humanity back to Himself, and that heaven invades earth, and that's the whole idea. So you build a community around that truth, and you'd think, well, shoot, there's so many other things going on in the world. How can you just build a community around that truth? But I'm telling you, that truth is the truth that begins to affect every aspect of communal life. And
It's the rock. It's a good foundation.
Exactly, yeah. And so,
I think I was just thinking. I think if anything, this conversation has really helped sort of prove the point that this is, if I'm hearing you correct, Rob, that this wasn't like some sort of big moral stance. I think we have made some. You've made like even we did a podcast on tithing, and there was sort of like, no, we actually have some theological reason for why we don't do this. This one's a little more like we just don't see it. If churches, churches with smarter people and better, people who
Better
can run
organized.
organizations, they might figure out exactly how you can use a membership to help their community.
yeah.
We haven't figured that out, and so we just don't see a purpose in it, and so we just don't do it for that reason.
So what is our membership idea then? If somebody were to come to us and ask or say, like, I really like Eastgate. I mean, we haven't heard that
never
before,
happened before.
but it could happen.
It could happen.
And if it does, if somebody's like,
That's our party.
I really want to be a member of this church, we just tell them that, sorry, you can't.
At my church in Jacksonville, which was a similar situation, they didn't have a membership. They would be asked that question, and they would always say, how do I become a member? And he said, come back next week.
Yeah.
And that was the answer. It's like, you come in, the joke was, if you come twice, you're a member.
And that's similar to what I've said to people over the years. If you feel like this is where you belong, if you have a sense of belonging here, if you feel that you can, agree with what we're pursuing, doesn't mean you have to agree with everything, but just the overall thing of what it is that we're pursuing here. and you want to just keep hanging out with us, well, that's it. That's the membership. That's being a part of the community.
Now, to expand from that, one of the things about being here, we do have kind of a not set but volunteer kind of rule in the sense is if you want to volunteer, we ask that you just sit for a while.
Yeah, that actually used to be a hard and fast rule. We've in conversation we've kind of softened that to make sure that we accommodate everybody's, because some people may be in a position where that's like the most important thing for them to be able to do at that moment. And if we've got some hardened policy, then we're not going to be able to accommodate people. So
just to clarify, he's talking about. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
So the concept was come here and hang out for like 6 months at least. Get to know us. Don't feel obligated to jump in and have to do something. And I've had multiple people who came from different environments tell them how healing that was for them to not feel under obligation, to be able to actually take the time that you need. 6 months is a good amount of time that you can kind of look at it and make a determination. These people are weirdos and I got to get out of here, or
these people are weirdos and I'm choosing to stay.
But I'm going to be weird too.
Yeah, it gives people an opportunity to get to know the community and just participate.
Right.
And obviously there's a season for participating through service as well.
Yes.
I think that the hard and fast rule, I think that the heart behind it is a good one, and I think it's something we probably still stick to a little bit.
We do. We try
As
to.
a person who leads the worship team, I will have people who their first or second week, they're like, hey, I played this instrument. And while I don't say you cannot play for another 6 months, I sort of in my head think, well, let's find ways to get you involved in other, or like, let me introduce you to some small group leaders, and maybe you should come and just jam with us on a Wednesday night when it's not, an official Sunday morning or something. And then that automatically sort of sets up a time for them to, because we can't set it up for the next week. It comes weeks later. So they're coming regularly, and they start to see but then there are people who get really involved quickly, and they don't just come on Sundays. They come to every extra event.
Yeah.
They come to small groups. They're showing up to volunteer even when we don't ask them. And those people, it would be weird to say, you have to wait 6 months.
I think that would be, we wouldn't. And that's
Right.
what we had to realize is that, hey, you do your best. And it seemed like a good policy, but we made that mistake and realized, okay, we can't do that. We can't hedge somebody out of this simply because we've got a policy here, because every individual is going to be different. And
would it be true that some churches almost expect you to volunteer right whenever you show up in the doors? So we're trying to
I've heard that story. Yeah. I've actually heard. I don't have personal experience with that, but others have told me that, one person talked about the very first day that they showed up at a church, a person walked up to him with a clipboard, said, "Okay, when do I put you down for kids ministry and stuff?" And it was kind of like, "Well, where's the bathrooms here?" It's like, I don't even know anything about the place, and I'm expected. So that made it feel as though participation in that church was transactional. Like I get to do I get to be here, but I have to, which community requires involvement, and so I don't want to minimize that, but to lead with that does feel a little
and in a consumer culture, transactional is very much, I think, our comfort zone with all of those things.
Yeah.
And we're trying to bring something different. And I do have such a strong desire to promote community here at Eastgate. And that's what makes me special. I know we all have that desire and wanting to communicate the heart behind that. When we've talked about needing volunteers for Kidsgate and wanting to communicate this is not my burden as a leader here at the church, and this is not my burden as a parent. This is the community's burden to help meet the needs of these kids. And one thing I'm so thankful for is the way that community shows up for small groups, because it is so many different areas for people to contribute and participate.
Right.
And whether it's bringing dinner, whether it's bringing cookies, and I see people show up with food for the dinner that they didn't sign up for. It's they're so excited. I brought something. I'm yes,
Yep.
You did. Add it to the table. And then even just the ways that God, the Holy Spirit, has moved to bring people as small group leaders, that it's not a representation of look at what the staff can do. It's look at what God does with community.
That's right.
And eating together and learning together.
It's actually a great picture of what how this was supposed to function. A church is supposed to function. Just what you described there is exactly what I believe Paul is talking about in 1 Corinthians 10 through 12, is the whole idea of you bring something to this. You know, you may not have signed up. It may not have been a formal expectation, but you're bringing something good into this, and we can all celebrate it, and we're all part of it.
There's
and
a
we
space
all,
for everyone.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Gosh, that's great.
Okay, so I want to pivot a little bit. If Eastgate were to require a formal membership, I think it could be fun to like brainstorm what we could do, because I think like an obstacle course would be really fun.
We used to
Wow.
say that you had to give me a piggyback ride.
We could hide more bookmarks around.
You could be a member when you find the membership form. It's hidden somewhere in the building.
We have like a membership
Gosh, we
of
should
like
just
10
do that.
people by the end of the year. Well, you're a small church. I was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, but you know.
They worked really hard.
So knowing you, I actually thought that
really
you were
picky.
being serious. Like, what kind of gift basket can we make for?
Well, that's what I was thinking. A reward could be cotton candy.
Oh boy, here we
The
go.
co- Cotton
People
candy.
don't
Why do you-
understand
why
Janelle's
do you
obsession
hate
with
cotton
cotton
We don't
candy?
hate cotton candy.
We
It's
just nobody
it's
can love it as much as you.
But we can't
Move on.
leverage that into everything that we do around here.
You want to like baptize people in cotton candy.
Okay.
I think I guess it's just I don't know. It's an interesting topic of discussion because I certainly know of people who I consider to be members of Eastgate,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there are people who consider themselves to be members of Eastgate, and it just sort of happened naturally.
Here's what's interesting too, and this would be true if we had a formal membership or not. I would say the number of people who identify themselves as members of Eastgate is probably far greater than what we could fit in this room.
100%.
If everybody were to show up.
People. So I wonder if part of the reason this was brought up is because I had a conversation with some people about churches and membership, and I had said that we didn't have a membership, and these were people in church, and they were really surprised by that. And I remember thinking, I didn't think anything of it because I grew up in churches that didn't have membership, so it was like, oh, I guess that's.
Yeah, because you
a
were
thing.
Vineyard. You grew up
I was
Vineyard.
a Vineyard guy,
Yeah.
so it was, and then we went to a Methodist church for a little while. I don't think we ever became official members of that, but we just went. But yeah, so then when I came to Eastgate and there was no membership, I was like, "That's just the way it is."
Mm-hmm.
Why did I say that? I've
You were
lost my
talking
train
to
of thought.
somebody about membership, and you told them we didn't
Yeah.
have one, and they were
They
a
were
little
surprised
shocked
by
by
it.
that.
That's
I
a
don't-
really
I
cool
was
story.
coming
Thank
to,
you.
I was coming to a point there, but it's gone. I don't remember what it was now.
Edit that out, Nate.
ADHD is gone. No, leave it in.
You might
want all
have
my
to take.
flaws.
You might have to take some of his previous podcasts and like splice words together to where it made a point. And then I went to the.
So
hate it here.
what we've resolved here is nothing. No.
More cotton candy. We need more cotton
So
candy.
the point is that memberships are not evil. There's no problem. There's nobody should ever have a moral problem with a membership or even deep doctrinal problem because it's not there. It's
Well-
not. It's
Not
just
anything.
it's not anything. But it could be useful. But it's not mandatory. And so if it doesn't work towards the greater goal of learning how to love each other, learning how to love Jesus in the form of community, then I don't think it's mandatory
So
or
on
necessary.
2 points of that. Oh, I'm sorry.
So, does the kingdom of heaven have a formal membership?
Oh, gosh.
It does. Is that why you said that? That's amazing. Everybody whose name is not written in the book of life.
So should
There's the idea
have a
of
book of
written in
life?
the book of life carries with it that concept of, your name is on a roll somewhere. When the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. That's an old hymn.
So maybe the official membership, God's got that, and we'll just do what we're doing here.
I think so. But that's such an intriguing. That's an intriguing epiphany.
I thought you were going to say, I just thought of that. And I'm like,
I
Nate
just
thought
came
of
up
that.
with it. I just came up with a question. It was
Came
so
up with this
good.
great idea.
I'm so inspired by myself.
How else can I inspire myself? What do you got, Nate?
I mean, you're taking all his money.
I was
right.
about to say you're already thinking.
We make jokes all the
It's always-
time about Rob taking the youth budget for different random things. So now he's just taking his
But
theological
that's a
points
joke. He
too.
doesn't do that.
Not often.
I did it one time.
But not for his
Never on
wait.
purpose.
To clarify, this isn't like for his own personal bank account.
There was a family in crisis that needed finances to be able to get to take care of their son, and we didn't have the money, but we had it in Nate's budget.
The family in crisis was his own, and his son just needed some beer. I don't know why we're pretending.
So I
had extra money in my budget, and I offered that. But then there was the other thing. Where
Wait,
we had money
I never
coming.
heard this part.
We had money coming
Yeah,
into
I
the
thought
youth.
Oh,
and you cut that off.
You said, and I quote, "He has plenty. Don't give him more."
Don't give him.
It's not what I said. It is such a lie. I did not. I felt. Oh,
I think we're officially
can
off
we
topic.
not? Yeah, can we
Let's go.
not air
Blake,
this
you
all
had
out
like a real
publicly?
thing, I think. What was
I'm
Blake
embarrassed
saying?
by
nothing
this.
compared to what just
And
happened.
look, I will say this publicly. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why. I don't know why I did that like that, and I apologize
I
to
watched
you. I'm
it
very
happen.
sorry.
It was very entertaining for me, so I wouldn't change a thing. But I do want to say maybe people in Eastgate listening to this podcast, or just anybody listening to this podcast, and they want to send membership ideas to our email. You know, like I said, obstacle course. I think that would be fun. Dad, there was a piggyback
Piggyback ride.
but maybe karaoke night, something like that, to be a part of the church. I think that could be fun to hear different ideas.
I don't care for any of that.
Okay.
Nate's.
I've got an idea. How about we just show up to church?
There's no cotton candy in that plan.
There's sometimes
Sometimes there is.
Ooh.
Sometimes
I
when
was
you
thinking about the formal membership with like if there's a formal membership in heaven and we aren't doing I was thinking about how isn't that sort of fit into sort of like judge not unless you be judged. Like that's not we are not the judges of who's a formal member of the kingdom, obviously. And so
I got it. At the end of Malachi, is it 3:4? Then those that feared the Lord spoke often one with another, and the Lord heard it, and a book of remembrance was made of it. So how about that? There it is. Those that fear the Lord, those that are into this, are going to gather together, communicate, meditate on His Word, talk about it, sing about it, pray about it, and that is how the formal
I love
thing
that.
works
I like that a lot.
in the divine realm.
I think we should
a book
genuinely-
of remembrance was made of it.
I just
consider using that as like something we post on the website and stuff. Like for like FAQs.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Okay.
And if we could implement cotton candy into it, Janelle would like it too.
I think that's really smart, Blake. Good job.
What did you pay him?
So I would like to point out about the cotton candy. We had it on Easter, and we tried to make some ahead of time because it takes a while. And just the humidity just melted it all. So we had cones that were sticky.
Sticky cones.
That's what I was thinking about whenever somebody said about baptizing people in cotton candy. I was just thinking.
But
like,
I know
thinking
Janelle is the one really interested in cotton candy. I assume she's the one making the cotton candy?
every
I
time.
actually don't even eat it.
What are we doing?
What?
Fascinating.
It's fun. Everybody loves cotton candy.
Except for you.
Let's
Well, but
move
I like
on.
seeing it enjoyed by others.
Oh,
If you, the listener, have any questions or if there's something you want to learn more about, you can send us an email at egcfpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. All right, guys.
The
this
whole
is, a less productive conversation than last one.
Edit right from when you say, this is the Eastgate podcast. Edit everything else out, and then we can close it.
what language do you
cool.
use in your brain?
Can I just like write the word but on there?